Hi, Marianne. I am so grateful you wanted to come along on this broadcast because we live in such turbulent times that it would be very nice with some uplifting perspective on what is happening in the world. Crisis everywhere we look, and this sense of like a held breath, like, and people not knowing, should I go left? Should I go right? What will happen to my job? What will happen to our company? What will happen to the energy situation? What will happen to the inflation situation? What will happen to the climate situation? What will happen to the biodiversity situation? So there's crisis everywhere we look. And I invited you because I know that you travel around the world. You do a lot of stuff with groups around the world. You meet a lot of people. You have a sense of what's going on, and you work also, which is almost magical. You have a sense of energy, the collective energy, the energy of our times. And so I thought you were a good one to ask. Also because, as you know, I work with leaders in corporate life, and it's very, very nice that you're also an engineer so that you understand, the natural laws of physics, and you're not only into quantum physics, which is a little bit scary for many people because it's so new. So I thought, let me ask you, of all people, what is going on and how to understand what is happening to us. Is there any hope for a bright future with all that's going on? So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for the invitation and the meeting here. I'm grateful for that. Always pleasant to be in a meeting where we would like to raise the awareness and open our consciousness to a new level. And this is what we try. So I worked a little bit with quantum physics when I worked at the university, not directly, but as a frame for what I was working with. What I'm doing now is working with sense of energies and the awareness. And it's not exactly the same, but when I work within this frame, it mirrors completely what I know from quantum physics, but also from all the other areas of science that I worked within: microbiology, biotechnology, chemistry, and the physics, the travel, the transportations in different environments. So when you work with the energies that we can measure, and you work with this sense of energies, it mirrors completely. And I see it as a natural state, that this is what you might expect. And this is a difference, I think, between superstitious awareness and energy awareness. There's a bridge, and there's a boundary between the physics, the measurements that's available for us to do, and this awareness that I work with now. And I'm always aware of the difference. So when I have this awareness, this way to sense the energy and the shifts in the mutual fields of consciousness, I'm really precautional to not enhance or to guess. So I have this sense of how things is moving, and then I watch and see what is going on, what will happen. And I work with this since 2012. And the first things I recognized back then, I was like, oh, I'm not sure that this will be true. But a lot of things that has been going on the last couple of years, to me, it's a sign. They show me signs that there is this movement going on in our consciousness, mutual consciousness, that is developed and enhanced through our technology. So a lot of people talk about AI, and that our technology begins to have consciousness. And as I see it, it's actually us that develops consciousness, and that this is mirrored in our technology. So we can develop technology that has the same capacity as we actually have, that we actually carry, that we are opening our consciousness, we are widening, we are broadening our bandwidth of our consciousness by the usage of technology. And this access is also an access to have an overview, perspectives, and sometimes even insights into what is going on in other people's consciousness throughout the world and in different cultures. And this brings in a kind of awakening. And you could say, but it's not new. We have had radios and televisions for hundreds of years. But the difference is that we become really close, and that the information that's coming in is live sometimes, and it opens our connection with the world. And in this perspective, right where we are right now, it's a little bit different to comprehend and to reach, to be the container for all this information. It's like a sense of it's not possible to contain all this is what's going on. So we have crisis, and to be connected with these crises so inline as we are with this access, it gives us stress. But when you see it in a broader perspective, this is not new. So in earlier civilizations, there were crises as well. And the crisis is like a wave of existence. And the shift right now, as I see it, with this opening into our possibility to be witnesses and to be looking in through the windows, the shift that is possible is that we actually begin to open the door, each and every one of us, and begins to make a difference. And this is where our personal leadership steps in. And if we bring in this step, and if we walk through this door, each and every one of us, the shift will be a shift into balance, because each and every one of us needs balance. And if we have the possibility, we will demand balance. If we don't have an access through the door and we stand outside, what we will demand is access. And if we don't have this access to take the leaderships and to demand what we need and to get it, and this is not demanding, I would like a huge house, a vintage car. This is about, I need peace for myself and my children. I need a future. So these kind of demands, if you have a sense of I'm standing outside the window and I can get into where this will be decided upon, where the leadership is going on, then you will have different energies, different reactions that will open instead. So instead of walking in through the door and bringing in the leadership, you will begin to bang on the door, you will begin to demand, and your voice will grow, and it will be more and more unbalanced, because you get anxious and you get nervous because you don't have access. So if we go into the shift and we open the door and we walk in through this, then we have a huge possibility for bringing in balance by bringing in our personal leadership and bringing this to an advantage. And the difficulty is that actually when people stand outside the window looking in and they have this behavior, that it gets more and more nervous, more and more anxious, more and more angry. A lot of the people who is on the inside, they say, oh, we have to ensure that they're not coming in, because if they come in here and begins to have demands, then everything will destabilize. And this is from the old time. This is how it actually have been before, because there was a huge difference in learning capacities and availability to knowledge and wisdom. But through this access, through our technology, this is brought in now. So everybody, nearly everybody, begins to have access to this knowledge and wisdom. And if the shift is allowed, if we want to allow the shift to bring in this possibility, then as a system somehow, or steps somehow to bring this shift in, needs to be decided upon by the people who sits in the chairs and make the decisions. So this is what is difficult right now. It's difficult right now. How do we make this shift? How do we contribute to the development of our civilization into this new era type, where everybody knows and everybody have an access to demand what they need? And to bring in peace, we need to create a new system where every voice is heard and is brought in to support the decisions to grow into a broader perspective where everybody is taking in. And when we think about it, we will think, oh, it's not possible. Oh, how should this be taken into reality? Well, how should this be brought into reality? It's not possible. But when I have these reactions, and I often do, I think back to my childhood, when we have no internet, we have no cell phones. We will call each other by the wired phones, and we have to make appointments ahead, because we have had no possibility to be in connection on the road. I would never in any way have had the possibility to think of this reality that we are in right now with technology. So if we would like to go on this wave where the shift is going on so fast now that the acceleration is on the acceleration and on the acceleration, and if this is brought in and stabilized, it enhances the shift. But if it's not stabilized, it could destabilize. And as I see it, this shaking that we see in the world right now is because it's waving between stabilizing, destabilizing, stabilizing, destabilizing. And we have the powers, we have the possibility to stabilize. And I see a lot of patterns that opens around the world, that shows a shift towards stabilization. Even though what is going on is destabilization, I recognize a shift that goes into this more stabilizing than destabilization. And this brings me hope, as well as when I'm watching people all over, when I'm meeting them here and there and everywhere, I see this awakening of being aware and responsible, and a kind of a perspective of a growth of responsibility, and that this responsibility seems to be aligned with availability to knowledge. So where there's a lack of knowledge, there's a lack of responsibility. Or when there's a lack of ability to contain the knowledge, the informations, it's the same. And this lack of possibility to contain is related to the sense of being outside the door and not having an ability to bring in the responsibility to our own life and our mutual civilization. So this is the difficulty with this shift, especially actually to the leaders, because they are the one on the inside, and how they will contribute to this shift is what can give them a share in history. Because if we support this shift into opening the door and bring everybody's voice into bringing in the perspectives, then they will create the stabilization for our future. So it's really tense, it's really intense, and my hope is also watered by meeting leaders, where I hear that they have this perspective, that brings this perspective in. They want to bring in a more mutual way, and the possibility to bring in everybody's knowledge into the game, and use this for growth, but not only growth for the growth, but growth into stabilization and a stable growth. And this is related to a lot of perspectives, a lot of different factors, and new things is opening everywhere. And I hear and I see that the perspective of the environment and people's wellness is a factor that is not only talked about. When I worked as an engineer, we have this perspective for our work, and we was writing it down. But the possibility to actually bring it into action was really small. So it was more like a leading star than it was actually action plans, where this perspective. But as I see it now, the action plans is actually brought in now. So the companies and institutions begins to bring in this goals with perspective of environment and health and sustainability, not only as a perspective of what we will gain and what we will reach, but we are doing it now. So to me, these different things, and when I bring it in together, and if everybody is taking their part and bring it into action as good as we can, then I for sure see hopes. And I see the technologies, I see the wisdom, I see the different science capacities. And if you bring them together, right now it's like a lot of different science lines or apartments. They work strongly by their passions and their path. So this means that if there's an action in an area, a lot of wisdom and knowledge, science is developing. And then in other areas where there's not so much awareness, or it's not brought up so much in people's awareness, then it's lesser active. And if we change this into a perspective where we see but which kind of science do we need to support, which kind of development do we need to support in the broader perspective and on the longer view. So if we both in the private companies and in the institutions, the universities and the other areas where you develop science and you work with the integration of science into reality, if you begin to create a leadership where you direct how do we support our science, and this driving forces is so strong within the science and the companies actually. So what nourish people and their soul when they work is their sense of making a difference and the sense of what they really know a lot about and what they have like a flame for this. If they experience that this is met, that this is important work, then it creates so strong driving forces that the energy that's needed and the capacity that's needed to make the shift in our reality, it's there. So right now, it's much about the people who work with medicine work this way, the people who work with the environment work this way, the people who work with economy work this way. But we need them to work together with a mutual goal. And the mutual goal needs to be developed by everybody, because everybody have an aspect, a view about what is needed in the future to create peace and a stable civilization.
So beautiful to hear that there's so much hope. And I agree with you when I look at what's happening in the business world, which is the one I'm most familiar with. I can see a lot of shift just since Corona. There's been like a lot of a positive movement towards a higher awareness of the importance of people thriving in companies and the importance of people having a meaningful job where they feel they contribute to meaningful purpose, because otherwise they're not motivated. They resign or they do quiet quitting. The importance of diversity of perspectives. So we can't just have monocultures and one-sided leaderships. We need diverse leadership groups. The importance of dealing powerfully with stress to avoid stress and prevent stress. The importance of taking the environmental issues hyper seriously, because no environment, no business. So there's a lot of positive movement, and I can see actually just the last few years, it's been very encouraging to see. And still there's also a lot of density. There's a lot of old patterns and old traumas and old ways and old egoic forces that are at play, because the people in power are understandably reluctant to open up to open source leadership, because it feels unsafe when we have been used to having few people in power over, and now to have power with and co-create is a very different story. But I'm sure we're going to get there, because many more people are taking leadership. I see a lot of people in corporations, they don't wait for the company to get aligned with the new era. They take an initiative themselves. They come to a leadership training, or they go and do their thing. They quit their jobs and start on their own. So and that is making corporations listen more to, okay, if we don't want to lose our most creative, innovative talent, we need to do something to attract them. We need to listen to them and give them more power. So a lot of good examples I see also in my work, and I also am very encouraged about, if we look at the environment, with all this movement, regenerative movement, this movement towards restoring what has been lost and what has been violated, is a strong. I think this is the most important movement of the 21st century, that we really regenerate the nature and the biodiversity and all that. But still, we're in the beginning, or we're not very far into the shift, and this is why it can look very hopeless. And as you say, it depends on whether we make this choice or not. So I'd like to ask you, what do you see of positive examples? You talked about before, you when you travel around and you speak to people, what do you see of positive, encouraging examples of the movement happening, just so people get some concrete examples of how do we see this? How do you see this?
Actually, I don't have to go abroad or travel to see this. And one of the things was the Corona situation. Mm-hmm. And because I worked before with microbiology and molecular biology, then I had a sense of what was going on. I worked with it within a different area, but still. And I have been working with environmental cleanups and investigations and risk assessments. So this is also my area. And what when I worked as an engineer, what was my biggest complaint was that we are not enough proactive. So we do not use our knowledge and or data to ensure that what we acknowledge is a problem and that something we have been doing is incoherent with what we want. Then when I worked as an engineer, I saw a lot of things that wasn't shifted. So we were cleaning up in one area, and at the same time they were pouring out different substances in another area. So there wasn't a proactive way of handling things. So there was an inline exchange and change. And this is related to our systems and the way that things is handled in our systems. And it's different in different worlds and different countries, in different areas in different countries as well. But still, I saw kind of the same everywhere. That there was a drawback, and there was a way of not being responsible for the future. It was a responsibility for the past that was going on. And when Corona opened, you could say a lot about everything was showing out how mature our civilization is, how mature is the leaderships from the government related to a modern reality and a modern people. But it was proactive, and the world gained in together. Even though they did their different things in their own way, they had a mutual movement that was proactive. So things was going on that you would never have expected. Huge access was created where things were suddenly going in totally opposite direction that you would see before. So just the proactive reaction that this was going on, and it was worldwide, this brought me hope and showed me that the shift is happening, because I have never seen it before. I have never heard about it before in history, because in history, the people didn't have this power over what was going on in the world, and they didn't meet each other. So what we're reaching here now is that the shift also is about that we begin to have power over what is going on in the world. And because we have only been connected to the now and the past, until now, we have been pretty disgusting. So we have spilled a lot all over the world, created a lot of unbalances, both in the environment, but also in societies and in the companies, in the way that the leadership is going on, also in the different governmental ways of doing things. But this shift where we begin to take the future in and bring in the future in the perspective of the leaderships. This is a shift where you were talking about that the people who is in the leaderships and that they have this difficulties in bringing in the mutual leaderships. They also, it's really important to acknowledge that they have wisdom. They have an integrated sense of what is possible. And even when they want to support the shift, they know things about what is going on and what is possible. So it's important to bring this in as a mutual shift, a collective shift where we connect with what somebody is really embedded in the past and brings in the data and the knowledge from the past, and with somebody, they connect with somebody who brings in the future, because they have this capacity to use all the new possibilities and have these visions, and is connected to the enhanced capacities of our consciousness that goes with the technologies. And a lot of the people that is deeply connected with the past, they don't carry the same capacity to broaden in their visions, or the way of handling data as the new era people, you can say so. But both is needed, because if you only work with the visions from the future and you're not embedded in the past, then you will destabilize the foundation that's already created. And it's really important to see how much is created, how much is here that wasn't here for 100 years or 200 years, that we have this experience that we are in the leap right now, we're in this shift, but this shift has been going on for hundreds of years. So if you go back 1,000 years, the world that you see here is so different that it would be like going into an adventure. So it's already a huge shift that's going on and has been going on, and or the frame in reality, or buildings, or ways of handling, or economics, everything is stabilized within frames. And it's really important that the people who knows about this, that they are taking in as wisdom carrier, that they're not seen as a disturbance or a blockage, that they are actually the one who knows which questions needs to be answered before we can go ahead without destabilizing. And that's a problem right now, because what is going on is that a lot of the power is given to the people and to everybody through this access with the internet, and a lot of flows is opening, and the people, some of the leaders, they're sitting really, really strongly. No, you're not allowed in here. And some is like going the other direction. What you want, I'll give it to you. In different areas. So we need the ones that stays aligned with the past and is open towards the future. It's not too much in the future and not too much in the past. And nobody can carry this by themselves. So it needs to be a collaboration. It needs to be a way of ensuring that what is going on is founded in reality, with an opening towards possibilities. And this is really different from what has been going on until now. So here we need a shift in the consciousness, because our programs, inner self, that's opening automatically, is founded in the past. And if you go 100 years from now, a lot of your reactions that automatically is going on and in affecting your consciousness, they are embedded in you 100 years ago. And to reopen these programs, to be able to rewrite them, we need a state of balance and peace. So I believe that this is why there's so much opening towards meditation and mindfulness. It's because when we are in this leap, in this shift, and our programs can't follow, we will begin to have stress, being anxious, have a sense of destabilizations within ourselves. And as I see it, this is what is wavering out in our mutual consciousness or world, is this inner stress that comes from our programs not being able to follow. So this is the reason why I work with these perspectives that comes in when I have my visions, and also taking in the data from reality, and work with finding peace within ourselves and in our mutual capacities. And the mutual capacities, as I see it, is the future. So to find out how to bring them at work, and how to do it with a foundation in the past, and an opening to the data from the now, and then have our vision in the future. Then we have the capacities right now, and we have actually carried it for a long time for bringing in this co-creation process. And if we bring in the co-creation process in the perspectives I have, the crush or the difficulties, the problems that we create in the world right now, because we have the power to do it, we can turn this around in a quite short while, and balancing it. And if you go into watch each and every problem and putting them equal in yourself, you will be stressed and overwhelmed from the data, and you will push it out and stay in the past. So to be able to carry in your capacity for the shift, to focus on what can I do? What do I comprehend? What do I understand? And in this area where I understand and comprehend and I have a power, how can I use this power to support the shift? And this is like the new way. This is a new era way, because what this will bring you, it will bring you peace on your own foundation, not on the mutual foundation. It's not possible right now, because there is a lot of shattering in our world right now. So it's not possible to bring your peace in there. But if you bring your peace in with this area where you have your power and you use your power, you will begin to create a positive spiral of bringing in more peace, more power, more peace, more power. And then you will be able to stand in this founded way of being connected with the past, taking the data in from the now, and have your vision in the future. And then we will be able to mutually create a movement that can, in such short a while we can't imagine, change the world into a place where we in the world would have the same possibility. In the world, we have the possibility to bring in our knowledge, our powers, our capacities to support the world to be more at peace, to every people on earth to be more at peace. And what this brings us is a nourishing, and also that we support our highest and deepest self to be satisfied. And when our highest and deepest self is satisfied, our programs will update by itself. So then the stress in every people that has a stress related to that they have this shift in the consciousness and their old program is dragging them down, then this will be released. But only when this is going on, it will be released. Because as long as things is going on in the old ways, the old program will be activated. So in the shift, working with the mindfulness access, the meditation, or as I work with it in a modern way, it's about focusing. It's about in a stable, focused manner, use your capacity to ensure that all your bandwidth in your consciousness is used for something that makes sense to you and that is coherent with what your goals are in all your layers. So both personally, in the areas where you are professional, in the areas when you're heart connected, in the areas where you have this sense of making a difference, all of these areas you need to have an acknowledgement of that this is how it should be. Then you bring in the peace, and then you are able to reprogram the old programs that was only connected in the past. And the difficulty right now is also that some people, they are easily deprogrammed and some is not. As you talked about, you meet the different types, and this can create like a fight over what is right and what is wrong. And there's nothing more than this fight that that creates a loss of energy. And the loss of energy is both in each and every one of us, but it's also in the process. So the process is what we are carrying in to make this shift. It will lose energy when we begin to fight about it. So we lose the energy within ourselves, the energy that brings the capacity and the availability to reprogramming. We will lose the energy for this, and then we'll go into the old program. And the old programs, they're carrying in a really strong energy that is about not containing. So then we will go into the negative spiral. So to be aware of this, to be aware of the positive and the negative spiral, that's what's most important right now, as I see it. And in my travels all over the world, you began the question with this. I've seen a lot of different ways to meeting life. What I met all over the world is kindness and a soulful need for making a difference. And I found it in so many ways, in so many groups, and so many professionals and personal angles and perspectives, that if I see this brought in together by this shift where we begin to be more and more united and we go into the positive spiral, then I am so satisfied with being both a guest and participate in this shift.
It makes so much sense. You said a lot of different things in your answering, and one of the things I'd like to draw out is the importance of personal leadership. That to no longer think that the leadership is for leaders on top of some pyramid, but to understand that now everyone's leadership is very important. And I think that Corona also showed us how we affect each other, how fast we affect each other, and how long those chains of affections are. So it's not only the person you meet, but it's the person you meet, and that you might say something that person brings forth and that affects somebody else. It's like, it's really, we are so connected. And I think Corona showed us that, how contagious we are, both when it comes to a virus, but certainly also when it comes to a positive virus, such as inner peace or an open heart or forgiveness or gratitude or good health or humor or laughter or loving connections or whatever it could be. We can also contaminate with that or affect each other with that. So I think this is important to remember that, or to really understand that no one is an island and no one is not important. I think this is so important to stress, because we have a tendency to think, well, it's part of our old brain to give up. So to think, well, little me, what can I do? Or I talk to so many leaders in organizations who are like, oh, they feel like they're banging against a wall in the health system that is so doing its own thing like it always did, it doesn't take in alternative angles or see things differently. The doctors are like, oh my gosh, the more holistic doctors are like, we can't be in this system. Or in the schools, when the school system is old-fashioned, the teacher's like, oh, I can't be in this old-fashioned systems. I get stressed from it. Or in corporations, I see a lot of leaders say, I can't keep saying we should do things differently and not be heard. So that's why we see this corporate exodus. But still, I really think we both have the sense that it's important to keep speaking up, to keep sensing what you're sensing, keep working with your own inner peace and your own shedding of old destructive programming, because we have a lot of constructive programming from our ancestors and from the collective. But the destructive parts, the traumatized part, the fear-based parts, we can let go of those slowly but surely and help each other do that, and then keep contributing with what we sense is keep voting for the future we'd like to participate in. I mean, keep participating in the change we want to experience for ourselves and our children. And I think this the Margaret Mead quote, that the anthropologist who said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." I find this is such an important quote to remember in this era, that everyone's contribution is super important, both on the positive side and on the negative side. So if you attack, if you create separation, that's also, to be mindful, what does that create of ripple effects? If you manipulate, if you dominate, it has ripple effect. But if you forgive, if you let go, if you connect, if you let go of your pride, if you step in, if you suggest, if you say it one more time, if you're creative, if you're loving, understanding, that also has an effect. So we really have a lot of choice. How do we choose to use our personal power? Because it will affect the whole. And I think that's what we both work with. You are a master of, I have seen you sometimes you participate in my leadership programs, and I've seen you being masterful at spotting destructive programming and helping to adjust it. And in my leadership programs, I encourage leaders to go for creating a new world and help them keep that focus, because we all need help in that. And we need the hope and the help to keep the focus and the remedies to shed the destructive parts of our past and then go for the more constructive. So I think it's also beautiful that we can collaborate to help bring about the shift in formal and informal leaders around the world. So our time is about to come up, but if you have a last piece of advice, if you want, I want to give you the last word in this, and if you have something you want to say as what can individuals do to keep up with this positive shift. I want to remind you that in the beginning said, if we choose this opportunity, because it's not a sure thing. I think some of the people in the self-development movement are extremely optimistic and think it will happen on its own. And I don't think we can get that's guaranteed. I feel this is really a choice point in history where every individual has to use their personal choice and with their actions and way of life vote for the future. Every day what we choose to drink and consume is every day we vote for the kind of future we want. So I don't think it's gonna the future is just gonna arrive like this, from the skies. We might be helped by an evolutionary destination, but I really think we have to make a choice. And I think it would be interesting to have you finish sort of with what do you then recommend people to use, how to use that choice, especially the ones who are disillusioned and feel like they're standing outside the door and they can't get in.
to be aware of that you have the power, and we are together on a huge ship. This ship is on a direction, and the direction needs to be shifted. It's going on right now. Every single person on this ship is a motor that have a direction and a power. So if you are focusing on your own direction and you work with being at peace with yourself, connected with the past, taking in the data from the now, and begin to, with hope and alignment with what you can see is makes sense, that you find your sense of directing by what is making sense to you, and to ensure that you are at peace when you find this is a really good idea, because then you can use the power and the mutual change right now to get a quicker alignment. And the more persons who do this, the more power we will have, and the power is aligned with compassion. And when the power is aligned with compassion, the direction that the ship will end up being aligned with is sustainability in every dimension, in all levels. And this is really important, I think, because only when compassion is available in all levels, you will find peace in all levels. Because if in some of the levels you will have compassion, you'll have peace, then in the levels there's no peace and compassion, then they will destabilize, create destabilizations. So actually nobody is at peace before everybody is at peace. And we can't comprehend this. The ship is too big. So if we zoom in, zoom out, zoom in. So this is the visions, but in my perspective, can I bring myself into peace? Can I see what is my driving force? Where can I create a difference that brings me a vision of there's a future? So if we do this, everybody at the same time, then we lift a little bit, and then we create a flow. And when we create a flow, each and every empowerment supports each other and enhance each other. So if you have tried to move in water, it's like it can be really heavy in the beginning, or if you move something that's really heavy, that's an energy that you need to overcome in the beginning. And when you have the movement, then the rules change. So right now, if we focus, if we watch how much is it that we need to change, then we will be overwhelmed, and then we will be, oh, it doesn't make sense. So if we sense, oh, I'm beginning to have this, it doesn't make sense, then you just zoom in. What can I do to make a change that is possible, that is easy, that's accessible right now? And then you begin to bring yourself this energy, this movement, and then your perspective will broaden out to what can be possible, and you create the effect on the now and the future that brings you hope and peace.
That is such a good plan for the new year. So that advice is hereby passed on. And if you want to check Marianne's work, it's pretty easy, because you can just follow her name. She's everywhere on social media and doing a lot of world service, I would say. A lot of, there's so many options to check your work for free. Even your full moon meditations, your YouTube channel, your TikTok channel. And it's like a smorgasbord of just so much support that you give to people. I really want to acknowledge you for that. And if you are into leadership, I also have these leadership trainings that you can check out if you want, illuminaryleadership.com. So thank you so much for this beautiful morning, and thank you for your work, and thank you for your hopeful perspectives. So it will not be the last time I ask you, because every time I ask you to give some perspective, it's always new and refreshing. You can be sure that Marianne always talks from the updated version of reality, because you are. That's their specialty, to just get the updates all the time. So it's you have not digged out this information in old books. You always listen to the updates, and I really appreciate that. All right, everyone, thank you for watching, and hopefully you will be able to use this for some constructive personal leadership at home, at work, and in the world. Thank you so much.